Hey everybody. So how do my last couple of videos tie into VR? Well, it should be kind of obvious to some people that can put it together. But, we've had the internet for quite some time and people chat, obviously social media, Facebook's huge, Instagram, all of it, Twitter, you know, we know how important and how big social media has become. Well, the thing about VRChat that's different from those is virtual reality for the most part. And even the people who are using the game through desktop, they are still being immersed with people who are immersed to a different level. And also, just the avatars themselves allow for eye contact during conversations. So even if you're on a desktop, wherever you're looking, the eye contact situation is going to be completed. So the person talking to you, even through an avatar, is talking to you. So even with desktop, it's a more immersive way of it's a more present. It's a way of being more present with people, and but VR takes it a step further. And so in VR, if you spend time with somebody in VR, you might still wish you can see them in person if it's a relative you haven't seen in a while, something like that. But what you also have is a real experience with them. Like you will remember it as an experience. If you go back to that same VR world, if it was a meaningful time, you're going to remember that time. The same way that places in real life remind you of a place, you're going to get that in VR where you have experiences that are also equally important. Um, and so, because it is like that, this is a chance for people to get out and meet people. COVID took it to a new level. In addition to the fact that now there's people coming in, there's no denying that the Quest not requiring a VR capable PC has definitely brought people into VR who wouldn't have otherwise been getting it anytime soon. So more people are getting, so it's expanding, but this is a very enjoyable way to socialize, and it's a meaningful way to socialize in ways that no other online technology quite match. So there are still, you can still have some meaningful connections through other forms. You can obviously still have video chats and everything, but the eye contact, speaking of eye contact, let me just place my, there we go. But the eye contact that you make with people, even through avatars, it finishes, it's as meaningful even through the avatars as it is in person. Because in person you would actually be making that eye contact too. Like that avatar is, that the person you're talking to is encompassing that avatar. Your brain figures that there's not a disconnect between the avatar and the person. I mean, unless the only thing that's a disconnect is unless you purposely try to think about it, what your energy is not spent on is the person's real physical features. Um, so beyond whatever you know about them away from VRChat is only an issue if you want it to be. And if you know nothing about them, then it's not an issue. And the VRChat experience in VR in general, other platforms can certainly do a good portion of this immersion as well. But the experience is so valid and real that the only thing that hinders your social life in real life that comes with you into VR, well, I guess, not counting speech impediments or something like that. But the other thing that comes into VR with you that is social anxiety can certainly come with you when you first join this game. And the experience and the situation is so immersive and real that you have to actually cope with that just like you would in real life. Now, the advantage you have in VRChat is you can test the waters more safely. Once you can adjust, and there's no reason for social anxiety in VR. So if you can identify why you might have social anxiety in real life, your chances are you're going to identify what you can resolve to encourage yourself to break out in VR, and then you should be able to do it. And then from there, however crippled your real social life is, then that's obviously you may really be extra awkward just because you really have no clue what to do to make conversation or whatever. But give the game some time, you'll make some friends, just even observe conversation. And on that note, what I want to say is you will see people confidently joking around and being on the same page in VR to the extent that they will strike you probably as the people that you didn't fit in with in real life, or they'll strike you as a crowd that's not your crowd, perhaps, or any of those things can happen. But just realize, while there are exceptions, the vast majority of people in this game are here for a reason. Like, they discover this and they latch onto it and they stay with it for a reason. And so they're not, what you're seeing is really what results from people coming out of their shell more than you're seeing people who've got it all together in here strutting their stuff in the game. There probably are some exceptions, but generally, if there are exceptions, it's the better exceptions. It's the people who really have just a high positive energy, and their social status in real life is not at all dependent on putting someone else down or trying to look better than anybody else. If somebody's really that healthy socially, then they can enjoy this just as much, because it is really immersive and cool. And there's probably plenty of good people that could go to any establishment and have a great time that also like the opportunity to come in and talk with people they don't normally get to meet in those environments. So yeah, they're all together. While there are some trolls that will try to use crashing avatars, and then, there definitely can be some exceptions to this kumbaya idea that I'm describing. You can deal with those very easily, and excuse me, they are exceptions. That's the cool part about it. But you can block people, you can mute people, you can report people if need be. You can go to a different instance that they can't follow you to. So you're not stuck with anything toxic. If anything gets overwhelming, you can bail. And then you can still easily find another place to start over or what have you. That's a nice feature of VR. So now to get into the other conversations, I've met people in the game that are physically disabled in real life. Like, in real life, they can't walk. I think one lady can't even hardly get out of bed, and she's coming into VR. Like, sometimes she has trouble not being able to bend down for stuff, but for the most part, she gets to come in here and walk. And I've heard stories of other people that are walking for the first time in VR, and so they get that chance to interact as though they're not disabled. And even with their, VR puts them on an even playing field. So even though there are still differences between virtual reality and reality, when everyone's in virtual reality, they're on an even playing field. So that in itself is an experience that disabled people don't get in real life. And then I've already mentioned the social anxiety, and there's just anything you can think of other than, you don't even have to speak in the game. So someone that can't talk, there's actually still meaningful experiences to come in here as a mute if you wanted to. And if you can't hear, that gets a little harder to have conversations. There are groups that do sign language. I don't know how well that works out with the index controllers, but they do it. So, anyways, that's even possible. But excuse me. But the largest group that gets represented in here that you might discover in a deeper relationship with than you would have an opportunity in real life if they're not in your normal circles, or you just have more passive encounters, and that is the LGBTQ community. And so I myself have joined in on jokes about VRChat making you gay, and a big part of that is all the dudes that wear female avatars. And I really haven't been a big part of that crowd lately, a little more often. Obviously, for these videos, I've been using this avatar. But in truth, there, at least in theory and in experience, more than likely, I can't really compare it because very few people can. We're not quite this social in real life. We don't get to freely roam from, instead of world to world, bar to bar, or whatever. But there's very likely a disproportionately higher percentage of LGBTQ players in this game than there would be in a equally populated social experience elsewhere. And the reason for that is because this does give them a place to not have to sweat out um, the things that they face elsewhere. And they also, their sense of community is among each other more than anything else. And so, uh, and then it's a great place to, if you've got questions, to ask. But when you meet people that you wouldn't, and you're talking to them on a deeper level than you would even get a chance to in real life, that's going to change paradigms. That's where the empathy comes in. If at one point VR was being touted as an empathy machine, and it really does have that potential. Um, so, and it worked for me. And so a lot of bigotry and stuff is based on group labels and false identities that have been passed on to people. And I can tell, myself included, people are forming opinions about entire groups of people, and they never question it. They feel like they know they think their opinions, firsthand knowledge, they think their opinion is solid, and it's never crossed their mind that they don't know any of them as individuals. Um, so unless you're so hateful that you are trying to hang on to it at all costs, if you're coming in here as a truly decent person with nothing but perhaps ignorance to blame for anything that's not up to par with that, then VRChat's going to be a great place for you. It's going to be a life-changing experience. And that's the kind of content I hope to get into, is maybe find a way that I can help share and bring some of these experiences. I'd like more people to be aware of what's available. And hopefully it would challenge some people in real life to also not allow lies and ignorance to continue to allow them to be a participant in hate, whether they are actively doing it, whether they are doing it out of ignorance, or whether they never even realized, well, that is kind of, whether they never realized it was hate, or whether they were just simply working on false information that made them feel justified in something that truly is hateful. However their ignorance comes about, um, the fact is, misunderstandings and misjudgments go both ways, because, and that's part of what creates a divide in real life, is people think they already know, and there's tension on both sides. So you don't get too many situations where two different people from different sides of this aisle are going to be in passing at the same time thinking, I'm going to give this a chance. You may more often come across where one person would kind of be willing if there was an icebreaker or something like that, but the odds of getting two people randomly who almost know, who think they know that there's no way they're going to see eye to eye or get along or tolerate each other or whatever, the idea that they're going to randomly stop from that random encounter, and both at the same time decide to challenge their own paradigm, that's not very likely to happen. In VRChat, you're not passing by. You're more like, hey, and you know nothing about them, and then you start to know something about them, and those things just don't matter in VR. And then pretty soon you discover real people that are pretty cool. You get along with them elsewhere. It's just really neat. The first club I was a part of in VRChat was the Red Lady. And one thing I loved about this club was people weren't just tolerant of one another. Like, there was straight people there, there's trans people there, there's LGBTQ people of all persuasions there, and everybody is out as they wish to be. And it was so open and legit and such a non-issue that it's very unlikely hardly anybody there wasn't presenting themselves as they actually were, because there was no reason to do otherwise. And what was special about it, what would be cool to see in real life, is, we would be making great progress in the world if it was to each their own, if that was the main thing that people could expect, that people just respect other people's individual right to be themselves. But at this club, people actually praised other people for doing their own thing well and complimented them wherever it was relevant, and nobody was afraid. People, a straight guy could, that whether he would be interested in a transgender woman or not, could sit there and like compliment dancing and, you know, and not hesitate about it, and not have to say no homo and declare, he didn't have to worry about that. Everybody was, for the most part, was like on a very mature, sensible level about things. And you didn't have to worry about being misunderstood. And if you were misunderstood, it just simply required you to clarify. Nobody was going to be offended. Nobody was going to be embarrassed. Nobody was misjudging you in a way that was going to get you ostracized in any form or fashion. If you weren't comfortable with it, you could clarify. I mean, I never saw that occur, but you could. That's all you had to do. Like, oh, yo, no, I'm sorry, I don't go that way. You're like, okay, it's cool. And life should be that way. This should be a non-issue. There's not a gay agenda. There is a human rights agenda. People just trying to actually get America to be the country that it likes to say it is, and that it was supposed to be based on its founding documents. We're just trying to get there. And VRChat's a great place to break the ice, because it's a lot harder for people to hate people that they actually know, and to hate people without cause when they know for a fact it's without cause. And you know that once you know these people and you have no cause to hate them. And so that's how powerful VR is. It's not only a great experience, but it creates these opportunities, and just about anybody that gets in here, you're not going to remain a bigot unless you're just adamant, unless you are very purposely choosing to. But honestly, I haven't encountered many in the game anyways. I don't see it. I'm sure they're in here or there, but this is not really their stomping grounds. It's not really a good place for their rhetoric and their ignorance. So yeah, I'd encourage everybody to check out VRChat, and I hope in the future to have some content that kind of helps show how this in action. Trying to get to that in a way that's trying to find how to do that where it's still capturing authentic moments instead of acted out moments or role played moments. That's a little bit more of a challenge, and that'll be a new thing for me. And I'm also I'm not going to blindside people with, I'm not going to ever stream anybody or even record them without them in a meaningful conversation without them knowing about it. Just period. So, anyways, take care, and I am out until more content comes. And have a good day.